Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the city clerk please take roll?
Jonathan Shelkey is absent tonight. Jerry DiTullio.
Here.
Christine Disney is also absent tonight, sorry. Julianne Stern. Here. Patrick Quinn.
Here.
Will Kearns.
Here.
Daniel Larson.
Here.
Janet Leo.
Are there any changes to the order of the agenda tonight? Lauren, was there anything we had to do different on the agenda?
No.
So the agenda will stand as published. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 18th, 2023?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes from the May 18, 2023 meeting.
We have a motion for approval and seconded by Commissioner Leo. Any changes, comments? Please poll the commission.
Motion approved, 5-0 with one abstaining.
The next item on the agenda is the public forum. This is a time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on the agenda. Public comments may be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody here to speak tonight on the agenda or anything not on the agenda, either here or in Zoom?
No one has signed up.
Possibly on Zoom. If you would like to speak at this time, please press star 9 or star 6 to unmute. Nothing.
Thanks. The next item on the agenda are public hearings. We're going to go to 7A, which is case number WZ2305, an application filed by Ville 4735 LLC for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1C1 to mixed-use commercial interstate, MUC interstate, on property located at 4735 Kipling Street. I'm going to open the public hearing, and if you're here to speak tonight on this agenda item, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter as you know it?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to the staff presentation.
Good evening. My name is Elena Olivas-Loera, and I am a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. I'm presenting case number WZ2305, which is a request for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to mixed-use commercial interstate at 4735 Kipling Street. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, and this digital presentation. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the Planning Commission has jurisdiction to hear this case. The subject property is outlined in red. The property is located on the west side of Kipling Street, south of the I-70 frontage road. The area is a mix of commercial and residential uses. The property is just over 3 acres in size and contains 2 motel buildings built in 1971. This is a zoning map of the area. The property is currently zoned C1 and is outlined in red. More C1 properties exist to the east and north that include the Super 8 Motel and Holiday Inn. Immediately south and west of the site is a planned residential development and Fruitdale Park. This is a view of the subject property looking south from the I-70 frontage road. It is 2 motel buildings with parking. This is a view of the subject property looking west from Kipling Street. The applicant recently purchased the property, and the purpose of the zone change is to enable reinvestment by allowing a wider range of uses, encouraging a better utilization of land, and ensuring high-quality urban design. The applicant intends to repurpose the existing buildings for multi-unit apartments. The current C1 zoning is reflective of longstanding commercial uses in the city. The C1 zone district allows a wide range of commercial land uses, which include office, general business, and retail sales and service establishments. By contrast, MUC interstate zoning allows residential uses, commercial uses, or a mix of the two. And the permitted retail uses are greater in number. The MUC interstate designation would allow more flexibility for revitalization of the site and will provide standards for any future redevelopment. The MUC Interstate District is complementary to the context of the corridor and the surrounding zoning and land uses and provides a wider range of allowed uses than the C1 zoning. This table summarizes the current and proposed zoning's development standards. Most of the proposed zoning development standards would apply if the property redeveloped in the future. Most notable differences between the two zone districts include building height, setback requirements, and lot coverage. The design standards in MUC Interstate are strict and include architectural standards, open space requirements, setbacks, and parking requirements. I would like to note that the maximum height in MUC Interstate is taller than C1, in part because the property is located in the area that voters exempted in 2008 from the charter's height and density limitations. That means a single-use building can be up to 4 stories or 62 feet, and a building that is vertically mixed use can be up to 6 stories or 90 feet. As a requirement of the zone change process, a neighborhood meeting was held on April 4th, 2023 in a virtual Zoom meeting setting. 6 individuals attended the meeting and did not have any objections to the zone change. Because Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application on referral to outside agencies, including fire, water, and sanitation, as well as completed an internal review. We did not receive concerns or objections from outside agencies. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days and letters were sent to property owners within a 600-foot radius. Staff received 2 comments from members of the public prior to this hearing. We use several criteria to evaluate zone change requests, which includes consistency with the comprehensive plan and other applicable plans. Staff believes that the proposed MUC interstate zoning is consistent with the policies and goals in the city's comp plan and the I-70 Kipling Urban Renewal Area Plan. The property is identified as mixed-use commercial within the structure plan, a designation used for existing commercial areas and which calls for long-term infill and reinvestment. The I-70 Kipling Urban Renewal Area Plan calls for many of the same policies and goals of the city's comp plan, including high-quality architecture and design, the incorporation of new and existing uses into a mixed-use format, and the stabilization of existing neighborhoods. The mixed-use commercial interstate zoning designation is appropriate for the subject property, allowing the existing land to become conforming and enabling the possibility of future redevelopment, which aligns with the city's adopted goals and policies. Ultimately, staff is recommending approval of the request for the following reasons. Based on the character and land use patterns of the area, the MUC Interstate Zone District in this area is more appropriate than C1 in terms of allowed uses for the property. For that reason, the zone change should not have an adverse effect on the surrounding area. Staff finds the zone change to MUC Interstate is supported by the city's comprehensive plan and the I-70 Kipling Urban Renewal Area Plan, specifically the vision for high-quality architecture and design, the stabilization of existing neighborhoods, and reinvestment in aging commercial properties. This zone change request supports the comprehensive plan by enabling investment in the property and by aligning the zoning with the city's mixed-use goals for this corridor. Planning Commission will recommend a decision to City Council, who will also review the zone change request. If City Council approves the request, then the zone change is approved. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the applicant. Would the applicant like to make any comments tonight? Okay, well, come on up and we'll see if we have any Q&A. We'll move on to questions. Let's see. We'll do questions from council and then we'll do public comment last. So is there any comments or questions from the commission? Mr. Kearns? Commissioner Leo? Commissioner Stern? Commissioner Larson?
One question on parking. Is there a required, if the zoning changes, would there be a required number of parking spaces?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
The
Go ahead.
question was on parking spaces. if it is rezoned, would there be a minimum or at least a number that we can use to describe the property?
Yes, there is. So with mixed-use commercial zoning, for residential uses, it's one space per unit. Based on a rough parking calculation, they're already overparked on that site. There's at least 122 spaces there, so don't foresee parking being an issue on the site.
There are 100 parking spaces on the site now?
Yep, over 100, yep. And that's
Huh.
at least, that's just based on a rough
Okay.
parking analysis. So yeah, they're way overparked right now.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Quinn? No questions. I just had two questions. On the rezoning, it looks like the driveway off of Kipling is being rezoned, or it's outlined in red. Is that necessary to rezone that, since both properties to the south and north are also C1? That's more of an easement?
It is part of their property boundary, so it would be included in the rezone.
But isn't it used as a driveway by the other two businesses?
Yes, yep.
So is that going to be a problem in the future?
Well, currently it's more of like a prescriptive easement, so it would probably continue to be that.
Well, it probably is a little scary for land use owners. What do you think?
The zoning in that case wouldn't have an impact on how it's being used in terms of being a driveway. So I don't know the answer in terms of what level of formal agreement there is related to the driveway use or not. If it's an existing easement, it would continue until modified. If it's prescriptive, it would continue until modified. But the zoning, whether it's C1 or MUC interstate, wouldn't impact that at all.
Okay. The other question I had is, I know that the applicant had talked about maybe building some additional units. Are you aware that CDOT is looking at that whole intersection and area for redevelopment? And that potentially, in the future, if you built something, it could come down because they were going to redo that intersection?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And so, are you planning on potentially building more units, or are you going to wait and see what happens?
I'm planning on building more units. I'm not sure I trust that they're going to do that intersection.
Well, that's the concern that some of the property owners there have, because if they're not going to do anything, then all the property owners need to know, because CDOT has been telling other property owners that they are going to be doing something within the next, 1 to 15 years. And then if you build, they may have to buy your units to scrape them. So I'm just giving you the heads up
Yeah,
that could happen.
I'm willing to risk that.
Okay. All right.
For the record, can I get your name,
Yeah,
spelling of your last
Keith
name?
Warburton, KEITH WARBURTON.
And your address, please.
Address? 244 East Stonebridge Drive, Draper, Utah, 84020.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to public comment.
Okay.
Maybe stay here for a few
I
minutes.
will.
I usually do public comment third, because their questions may be answered by staff or by the applicant beforehand. So we'll move on to public comment for this agenda item. Do we have anybody in the office or in the council chambers that wants to speak tonight? Come on up, and please state your name and address for the record. And you have 3 minutes.
Pat Severa, 10721 West 45th Avenue.
Sorry, can I have you repeat your first and last name?
Cervera,
And your address again?
Hmm?
Your address again?
10721 West 45th Avenue.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I had a hard time hearing staff comments and presentation, and the responses. I also have a question about parking. You said one space per unit. I just don't think that that's sufficient. It's very unlikely that each unit would only have one vehicle. And I'm concerned about the curve there, if there's parking in the street allowed. I use that quite often, and that would be a concern of mine. I haven't seen plans for the actual building. Are there actual plans?
What street are you referring to for parking? What street are you referring to for parking? Miller or
What he
Kipling?
plans on building.
No, what street? You said you were concerned about parking on the street. Are you talking about Miller or Kipling?
I don't know what street that is. It turns off at Kipling and by the Holiday Inn Express.
Oh, okay.
You know what I don't know what street.
Staff, any response to the
Is that
parking?
a frontage road, I guess?
Yeah, I think you're referring to the frontage road, which is just north of the property, and parking on that street is not permitted,
Okay,
and that would not change.
okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. I just didn't know if there were actual building plans that have been submitted.
So not at the moment. Right now, it's just the rezone of the property. And right now, since the applicant isn't proposing any new development immediately after, they'll just go straight to building permit. So there won't be any plans for us to review apart from the building permit when he goes to convert the motel into the apartment units.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on Zoom?
There is one. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand by pressing *9. Nothing at this time.
Nothing? So we'll move on to other questions or comments from the commission. Mr. Larson, you said you had some additional.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the applicant. Is the motel occupied now?
It is. We've been working with the city of Wheat Ridge. When we purchased the property, it was occupied probably to about 70%. I think the property is well known for a lot of wrong reasons or a lot of bad reasons with criminal activity, drug use, things like that. We've been working to help get that changed, so we've gone and applied for our hospitality license so that we can continue to operate it as a hotel in compliance while we go through the rezone and then potentially the building permit. As we go in and clean things up, we get a lot of resistance. The longest guest there has been there for 7 years. We had one pregnant mother, she's pregnant again but has another child, who was paying $2,000 a month to stay there. So we reduced that down to $1,000 for, which is roughly about $49 a night to help her. So the problem with these older hotels is they typically generate a cash business and the various activities that come along with that. When we come in, we start setting rules. A lot of that has to do with parking and things like that. We towed 3 vehicles off the property today because there was a gentleman that runs basically a chop shop there. He brings his tow truck with stolen vehicles, chops them up, and starts selling them off. So we had Wheat Ridge City Police come and escort the towing company, and we were able to grab a few of those vehicles. Most of them are unregistered is how we identify them. And of course, about 15 vehicles drove off with people in them when the tow truck showed up to get the ones that the guy was working on. So it's a process, but it's a good process. There's a lot of people who need the affordable housing. And when I say affordable, it's not deemed affordable. We don't take public funding, so we don't have to do any kind of income restrictions. But we try to make it into a price point that is reasonable because it is a studio, apartment level. With that, our typical client is the manager at Burger King or one of the affiliated businesses, a Circle K or something like that, who's, a very low income type of a person, but we don't do background check or a credit check because usually that disqualifies people. We work heavily with the VA because the VA, a lot of those individuals will make good income, but they usually have something that's preventing them or a barrier to get housing, whether it's their criminal past or a credit past or something like that. So we open it up to them, and we're not prohibitive with an income restriction for those individuals. So it ends up being quite a good change for these properties. It also reduces the amount of hotel rooms that are available in the area, and it helps the hotels that are immediately adjacent to me to be able to run a better business because I'm not competing head-to-head for them, their clients.
You mentioned that you have applied or you're about to apply for a operating license?
We believe we have applied. My staff has been working on it. We've been working with Patrick from the city pretty extensively and the chief of police to make sure we get everything compliant. The property was in really poor condition, so we have a ton of things missing, like screens and things like that that would put us out of compliance. Our last order yesterday was like $6,600 just to get those kind of miscellaneous items like stops in the sinks and things like that to where we can be compliant for the next few months while we go through the process.
What would, if the zoning change is approved tonight, have you developed some sort of a timeline for when the process
Yeah.
would involve of closing the hotel, the motel business and beginning the remodel?
Yes, as fast as we can. So if we get approval, then we can immediately go into the plans with the architect and have a design review meeting with the building department and make sure that we're catching all the items that are required in setbacks and fire suppression and things like that. We want to make sure we know where the fire suppression would be coming from, if it's off of the frontage road or off of Kipling, to make sure that gets put into the buildings. And once we have those plans in place, it would probably take an architect 4 to 6 weeks to get those ready. We're hoping that we can be that fast. And I think the second meeting for the official zone change is in September, if I'm thinking right. So we would hope to be able to have a building permit in October. And then once we're to that, we like to take down 10 to 15 rooms at a time and convert those into the apartments, and then we would move the people who are on property into those apartments and get a long-term lease with them.
So it'd be sort of a staged turnover then?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
We could take down one building and then the next building possibly if it works better economically and if we have the vacancy. So we could do that as well.
It mentions here a couple of times the building was constructed back in, I think, the early 70s. Are there any structural issues with this that, would cause?
Not that I see. This is the 12th one I've done. I love these 2-story walk-up properties that look like they could be apartments, and they kind of function like apartments. They're exterior corridor. There's no really economic reason to try to compete as a hotel. All the new hotels, you see them, they're like a 3 or 4-story brick on the smallest piece of property they can get. So they operate really efficiently. I think this would always be a bad hotel if it stayed a hotel. I know I say bad, that's probably the wrong term, but it's probably a C-class property. The housing demand in the entire Denver area is so great that I feel like the highest and best use for the property is to go mixed use. And so those hotel units would be going into studios, and then we would look at the dirt that's in the front of the property towards the frontage road as 1, 2, and 3 bedroom type properties that would then be a nice fit with the studios that are on the property.
And that would be allowed under the zoning change?
Yes.
I believe you said.
There's like a lot of things in there that our architect and planner would have to do with the setbacks and the site and the parking, and so it would be a full set of site plans and everything else, but it looks like it would work really well.
Right, when you look at the overheads, you've got that big square of what used to be a swimming pool. I can't imagine what's
It
in there
stores
now.
tile now
Okay,
from the previous owner. I don't know why he would put them down in there, but it's full of tile.
okay. And it just, the only other question that comes into mind is, if this property is rezoned, is there any sort of obligation that you would feel to actually go through with the remodel and cease being a hotel and turn it into apartments?
Yeah, I feel obligated on it. For me as a private developer, I think there's really good opportunity there. So I don't see any reason for me not to go through with that. It's our business model, it's what we do. We have our own property management, so we don't turn it over to a third-party property manager, we actually manage it. So yeah, we're pretty committed to it.
And there are other similar projects that you've done?
Yeah, yeah. Our biggest one is in Salt Lake. It's 200 units. It was the old Ramada Inn. We did a partnership with Salt Lake City, the state of Utah, and the RDA. All of them contributed funding for it to help to convert it because they wanted to have us use it to house people who were coming straight off of what they called the local housing council. Those were typically homeless or formerly homeless people that have a voucher. And so we would take them in, take the voucher as payment, and then we provide property management for that type of property.
And I understand you guys are a private company, but are there other funding sources that you plan on tapping?
No, we don't want it. We'll like the freedom of being able to operate it without the restrictions on it, but we will work with the different service providers. Jefferson County Mental Health is one that has started to bring people to us. Wheat Ridge Housing Authority has brought us 2 people so far to help us, to help them house. So we feel like we're going to work with all the different already existing service providers in the area that are really good. The people who take care of that affordable population are really good organizations, and we just typically need to give them a place to put their people. We feel like if people can get housed, then any kind of services that are provided will actually stick with those people. And if they're always in a state of trauma and not housed, it doesn't matter what you do for them. It's always they're in trauma, and it doesn't really help a whole lot.
Thank you, Mr. Warburton, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments from the commission? I'm going to close the public hearing, and a motion's in order. It's in District 4. Does one of you want to make the motion?
I move to recommend approval of case number WZ 2305, the request for approval of a zone change from commercial 1 to mixed-use commercial interstate for property located at 4735 Kipling Street for the following reasons. 1, the proposed zone change will promote the public health, safety, or welfare of the community and does not result in an adverse effect on the surrounding area. 2, utility infrastructure adequately services the property. 3, the proposed zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan. 4, the zone change will provide additional opportunity for reinvestment in the area. 5, the criteria used to evaluate a zone change supports the request.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion for approval, seconded by Commissioner Kearns. Any questions on the motion or comments? Please poll the commission.
Motion carries 6-0.
Oh, congratulations, step 1's done.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So it looks like item number 2 is being postponed or continued.
Yes, so we, you may or may not realize that when we have a planning commission meeting, we actually publish the agenda items in the newspaper almost 3 weeks in advance. So we thought we were going to have this one ready. We published it. It's not quite ready for prime time. So when it's published, we have to include it on the agenda. You're exactly right. We will be rescheduling that, republishing that. It'll come to you in the next couple of weeks.
So tonight you don't need a motion or anything?
No action. Yeah, thank you.
Good. So we'll move on to new business.
Yes, I have a few things, including new faces. So I wanted to officially introduce you to Jana Easley. She's our new planning manager, starting about over a month ago, right? Do you want to introduce yourself, share your background?
Hi, good evening. It's nice to meet you all. Some of you I've met in person a little bit so far, and some of you I haven't. But my name is Jana Easley, and I've been in the planning industry here for close to 20 years. I've previously come from Lafayette, and prior to that I was at Westminster, and prior to that I was at Greeley. And so I've had quite a bit of a variety of experience, but one thing that I looked for when I was seeking new employment was someplace that I was a little bit familiar with. I grew up in Arvada, so Wheat Ridge was always kind of like, just down the street, and I spent lots of time here. Of course, I was born at Lutheran Hospital, like a lot of people. So, and then the other thing I was looking for was a smaller community where I could work on a variety of different things and be involved in the community in a positive way. And so when Wheat Ridge, I saw the opening for Wheat Ridge, it was good timing for me. And I applied, and I'm very, very excited to say that I absolutely love my position here. So far, it's just been delightful. Everybody here is very helpful, very friendly. And I'm excited about all of the redevelopment, but also keeping a lot of the old character. I think that you all have done a wonderful job in doing that. So anyway, that's a little bit about me, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. So it's nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Any questions?
Couple other staffing updates for you. Jeff Hurt has been here for about 3.5 years, and he's been leading the Let's Talk program. He is leaving us, as happens every now and again with our planners. He's heading to the city of Louisville. His last day is next week. And Steve Wynn has been in the city's engineering division for 40 years, and this week announced his retirement. So I'm sure you have seen him either in this setting or other settings. He's been the manager of the engineering division for 20 years, since 2003. So a lot of contributions, a lot of time. He's witnessed a lot of change, and we've got a lot to sort of pull from his brain before he takes off in the next month and a half or so.
Tell him congratulations.
We will, yeah. Thanks. I'm sure it was a bittersweet, but he is looking forward to mountain biking and e-biking and hobbies, right? Our last meeting was 2 months ago, but somebody, I think it might have been Commissioner Larson, asked for an update on Wadsworth. And so just the little bit that we know, we don't live in that world as much as our Public Works Department, but you're seeing some of these updates probably more frequently. I avoid Wadsworth now in my commute, if I'm being honest. But the biggest update is that the northbound traffic will move to the new concrete this weekend or Monday. So very soon that will shift. We've got a little bit of work to do in the middle where the median will be, utility work, and then the southbound traffic will shift in a few weeks to the middle so that we can get the concrete on the west side, and that will start to visualize that full width of the new section. If you're not already on What's Up Wheat Ridge, there is a weekly update on there, and I don't know if they push it out to people who subscribe to the project or if you're ever looking to see what's going on. Kate Binning is a gal that we hired. She's a communications person and an engineer, so she does an incredible job of translating what's going on in the weekly updates. Yeah, we're super lucky to have her. That's most of what I know on Wadsworth. It's, we're still a year out. It's a big project. We knew it would get worse before it gets better, and there's normal snafus, but Maria DeAndrea, who's been our Public Works Director for the last year or so, has done just an outstanding job of taking lead through that construction phase. So I can try to answer questions, or I can get answers if I don't know them.
Real quickly, Lauren, I would suggest next time you're in the room with somebody from that project, when they send the updates out, include something that says, we are 55% complete.
Progress.
We are 2% complete. It looks like it's never ending, and we get the updates and something's happening and something's moving or something is being installed.
Yeah.
How far from being
It's like
finished?
that fundraising thermometer.
A
We want
thermometer
to
would
see
be
how far
perfect,
we
yes.
are, right? I'll make that suggestion. I like it.
I did have a sort of a question on, and it does kind of relate to our issue tonight, our discussion tonight regarding the commercially zoned property around Kipling and the interstate, and how it's been a bit of a problem. And we heard some of that tonight in one of the resolutions. We know that one of the other motels in the area has taken the step to become fully licensed, and they've done a wonderful job with that. But there's still some problem properties.
Yes.
One of the things that struck me with this case was that the property was purchased without a clear line to a rezone, that they took, there was a substantial amount of risk there that they buy this property, and I saw an article that it was something like $5.5 million for the property, without an assurance that the city of Wheat Ridge would change the property and to allow them to turn it into housing. Would it make sense for the city to consider a sort of a legislative activity, similar to what happened along 38th, to rezone the commercially zoned properties now into mixed use, to allow, to sort of open up the doors?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you'll recall, so we've had the mixed-use commercial interstate zone district on our books, sort of as a law, for over 10 years, 2010, when we did the mixed-use code. What we haven't had is a sub-area plan that says, we think this area should be zoned mixed-use commercial interstate. We have that now with the 44th Avenue plan. So that sub-area plan extended to that area, and that is one of our action items. So what we typically do to sort of pursue that would be a property owners meeting in that area, take the temperature of that group, understand if that's something they're interested in or not. He beat us to the punch. We just haven't gotten a chance to sort of move that forward yet, but it's a great suggestion, and it's certainly something that we need to explore with those owners, because you're exactly right. If we could put the zoning in place, it creates some assurances for the community and for potential new owners to know what is ahead, remove some of that risk. Yeah. In terms of buying the property before it's zoned, we see that occasionally. It actually happened at Clear Creek Crossing. Evergreen bought that land before they had the zoning in place. It's not common. We don't recommend it to folks, but we see it every now and again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you know if the applicant, if they're converting those to apartments, are they retrofitting them with actual kitchens
Yes, they will have to.
to follow the new code that's for long-term?
Yeah, so they are going to convert it to actual apartments, so they'll have to follow the building code. Where the bigger context within which he's working, and this is going to be a tiny code amendment tweak that will come to you soon. Some of you will recall that a couple years ago, we addressed the issue at some of these hotels through creation of an extended stay lodging licensing program that outlines if you want to live there, you can't live there for 7 years per the code, but if you want to stay for more than 30 days, up to a year, here's what has to be in each unit. So we have a couple of hotels that are going through that process. Those that choose not to go through that process and still keep people in the hotels for longer than 30-some days are at risk of losing their hotel license. So that is the slow work that is happening. We're refining some of the tools in that extended stay license. Most of that lives in the licensing code. There's a one tiny tweak in the zoning code.
Good.
Would there be a way to kind of find out how things are progressing?
For the extended stay, we just went to council with an update, so I can send that memo and video out to folks. We told council when we made that change that we would give them an update at 12 or 18 months, and that just happened within the last month or so.
Right.
Yep.
Because I'm sure plenty of residents, especially in District 4, are concerned there doesn't seem to be anything happening.
Yeah,
So
I
you
can,
think- yeah.
it's working, and that memo's helpful because the other thing that it created is actually a rule about the number of calls for service per room, which is to say you need to change some things operationally, owners, to help mitigate some of the crime issues we're seeing. And we have a couple licensees who, well, frankly, part of the reason that this owner sold, I think, was related to the fact that they could not comply with the new regulations.
Is the American Motel allowing any long-stay tenants right now?
I think they're in the same boat as what he described. So the city dedicated $500,000 of our ARPA funds to work with Family Tree to relocate people. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of folks still in the American, but we're still actively working with them to relocate them.
And the Super 8?
I don't know the status of that one.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay. On the brighter side, though, I just drove by the former Howard Johnson's across from TNA.
Yes,
There's work going on there.
they're very close.
Yeah.
We have sort of a staff, we try to take staff tours toward the end of the project, something that we're hoping to extend to Planning Commission more often in the future. Yes, they are getting close to asking for CO, certificate of completion.
So let's let anybody else have any questions or comments under project development. Commissioner Kearns?
Question. So people live in these extended stay motels because there's no credit check or background check? Is that what I,
Sometimes, yeah, or because there's not another option.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's not ideal.
Okay. Commissioner Leo, anything tonight? Commissioner Stearns? Commissioner Larson? Commissioner Quinn?
Sure, for my second one. I just want to thank you all for the packet. It was well put together and was fun to read Sunday in the backyard having coffee and try to plumb up for this, and appreciate the class that we had, Lauren, and it was great to meet you. And good luck, and congratulations on Steve's retirement. That's good. It's nice to see when people retire and move on to their retired life. I'm excited about this project where that interstate was. Listening to Mr. Warburton, I think that's really nice that he, I mean, that's outstanding that he let the ladies stay there for like $1,000 a month less than what was before. That's outstanding, and if that's the kind of goodwill he's going to portray in this project, I hope it's a very good seed to put forth for these other properties that are at issue.
Yeah.
So, other than that, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The only thing I have tonight is we haven't had enough meetings for my mental muscle memory. I keep saying Weirwood City Council, Public Council, so bear with me. I'll get the commission in there, and Commissioner Stearns versus Council Member Stearns or whatever. So, Mr. Larson.
One last thing, and this, I watched the broadcast of the city council session from the last time, and there was discussion about the upcoming comprehensive plan that the city is about to undertake. And Ms. Easley, maybe, I'm not sure how involved you are in the planning of that, but this is going to be something that's going to be of significant interest for this commission.
We're actually going to city council to have a study session in the upcoming next Monday, I think. And your next meeting is August 20th, and we'll give the same update of sort of the timeline and what's coming next. We will hire a consultant. So we're not ready to kick off for probably another 6 months, but yes, we have an update for you. We will have an update for you.
Great.
And
Thank
Jana
you.
will be in charge when Jeff is departing.
Well, and fortunately, I just went through an update process with Lafayette, and they hired out a consultant to do theirs. It came out very nice. And then prior to that, when I was at Greeley, we actually did an in-house one, which was all hands on deck. And that was a very interesting process. So I do have a little bit of experience with comprehensive plans, and I'm really excited about ours, so.
I have a question.
Oh, Commissioner Stearns?
Is there, will the commission have study sessions around that process?
Yes, you will. Yeah, we don't have a study session sort of pre-kickoff. We'll just sort of let you know, here's what our timeline is. And we don't think it'll get delayed by Jeff's departure. He was going to be the project manager. It's sort of good timing. He's wrapping up Let's Talk, and the comp plan hasn't started yet. But yes, that will absolutely be a part of it. You'll recall maybe through the Lutheran and 44th, there were at least 2 study sessions. And we'll sort of, we were talking the other day about kind of creating a job description of like, what is the commissioner's role during a comprehensive plan, or the multiple hats you can wear. So we'll make that clear for y'all. It's exciting. Sort of a once in a term experience, right? It's been 15 years since our last one.
Is there a chance that the commission on the study sessions would be kind of joined with city council and kind of have everybody in the same room?
Maybe. We did that for the neighborhood revitalization strategy, and it wasn't as productive as they sometimes are
That
when
was the old
you're in
commission.
separate rooms. So we'll see.
That was the old council and the old commission. Well, think about it.
I have I don't know if it's related or not, pertaining to like a future zoning change or something. When does the deed restricted stuff we talked about before, when does that fall into play? Like a deed restricted affordable housing type of situation?
You mean when would a project come before this commission, or when
Yeah,
does
I
that
mean,
code amendment go into effect?
Yeah, is that in the deed of the property itself, and it's got nothing to do really with this body?
Yeah, so deed restrictions on affordable housing don't typically come to planning commission. So the code amendments proceeded to council. I was actually out of town. I think they got approved by council. The zoning code, like federal law, treats residential development all the same. So you can't sort of make decisions based on whether it's market rate or affordable or deed restricted or not. So when we present any residential project to you, that wouldn't be a part of our analysis, because we can't discriminate on sort of the type of housing it is. But those deed restrictions are usually privately executed by the person who's the beneficiary of the restriction, usually CHFA, the Colorado Housing Finance Authority.
That's what I thought.
Yep,
I
yep.
appreciate- yeah,
Good
thanks for
question,
clearing that
yeah.
up in my cloudy mind.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Sorry. Do you have any updates on the Lutheran Crown Hill planning initiative?
The Let's Talk?
Yeah.
Yep, so Lutheran Crown Hill and the North I-70 are our last two neighborhoods in Let's Talk, and the action survey is out right now, and I believe it's out until September 9th, or you know what, it goes out on Monday, I think, isn't that what Ashley told us? So you'll recall that a Let's Talk Blitz is two-part. The first part is sort of any topic you want to talk about, and the second part is here's how we can respond to the topics that you raised. So that second part kicks off in the next week or two. Believe the open house is going to be on August 31st. We'll have some online office hours. We'll have an online activity. We'll have a better update for you when we see you next at the August 20th meeting, because we'll be right in the middle of that phase.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, now is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Leo. Please poll the council on the adjournment.
Motion approved, 6-0.
We're adjourned.